Owen Wilson's Stick got off to a strong start, but there are still a few unanswered questions about the first episodes of the golf comedy series. After introducing the cast of Stick and getting them on the road together, Stick Episode 3 covered Santi's, Peter Dagger, first tournament in the amateur golfing scene. Elena, Mariana Trevino, and Mitzi, Mark Maron, had their own problems getting used to one another, and Price, Owen Wilson, and Santi got off on the wrong foot. Still, despite Stick's underwhelming Rotten Tomatoes score, it looks like it could become one of Owen Wilson's best shows. Stick Episode 3 wrapped up most of the show's introductions, but it also set the stage for the remainder of the season. Price and Santi's fight, for example, will likely take up at least another episode going forward, while Elena and Mitzi still have a lot of room to grow closer together while the other two are out on the links. There were also a few moments in Stick Episode 3 that weren't entirely clear and parts of the characters' backstories that were only hinted at, and they could all do with a bit more explanation. That's trouble, what Zero means for the rest of Stick. Zero will probably pose a challenge to Price, but they could help with Santi's mental toughness. Zero, Lily Kay, looking at Santi in Stick Season 1, Episode 3. The single biggest development in Stick Season 1, Episode 3 was the introduction of Zero, Lily Kay. We've already seen that Zero is trouble and doesn't put up with anyone's abuse, and they already told Santi that they're not fond of Price. Zero will probably have some problems with Price and offer some friction against his style of coaching, but they could also be a very good influence on Santi. Price has mentioned that Santi needs a way to calm down when he gets too into his own head, and Zero could help him develop his mental toughness. There's even a chance that Zero could join Price, Santi, Elena, and Mitzi on the road for the rest of the amateur circuit. Price has a very unorthodox style of coaching, and he almost certainly realizes just how much Zero helped Santi. Santi did, after all, go 8 under par on the back 9, after talking to Zero. Price may invite Zero to join them on the road and be Santi's Cecilia and help him calm down in high-stress moments. Zero and Santi also clearly have some romantic chemistry, though, so their presence may cause more problems with Elena down the road. Why did Santi blow Price off after winning the tournament? Santi was mad about Price treating him like his dad, overconfident in his own abilities, and behaving like a normal teenager. Though he won the tournament, Santi wanted nothing to do with Price. He tried to blow Price off, but after being cornered by him, Santi told his coach to F***K off. Stick did a good job of explaining why Santi was so mad at Price, but there's more to the story than what Elena said. The biggest reason Santi blew Price off was because of how he was acting like his father. Elena mentioned that Santi's father would verbally abuse him whenever he did bad in golf tournaments, and Price was far too harsh with Santi after his poor performance on the front 9. That Santi's father is the reason he stopped playing golf, but Price's similarities to him weren't the only thing that made Santi so angry. While Santi was ranting about Price to Zero, they said that Price is exploiting Santi, and the young golfer may have taken that to heart. Santi is also very overconfident in his own abilities, so he may have blown Price off in a bit of pride that he won without Price's help. There's also the simple fact that Santi is a teenager, and teenagers often defy their elders and coaches like he did with Price. What happened to Mitzi's wife in Stick explained. Mitzi's wife died suddenly sometime before the start of Stick. Mark Maron and Owen Wilson in Stick Season 1. The first 3 episodes of Stick mentioned but somewhat danced around the fact that Mitzi is a widower, and they never explained exactly what happened to his wife. While Stick never outright said how Mitzi's wife died, there were a few context clues that paint a mostly complete picture. Mitzi offhandedly mentioned to Price that he bought his RV with the intention of visiting all the national parks with his wife, but that his plan fell through when she died. He also told Elena that he was being ornery because the RV was supposed to be for just him and his wife. Based on Mitzi's own comments, it seems that his wife died a sudden death before Stick began. We don't know exactly what took her life, whether it was an illness like cancer or a more instant cause of death like a car crash, but it did seem to be quite unexpected. If it had been more anticipated, Mitzi either would not have bought the RV, or he would have begun his tour of the national park sooner than he did. His wife's death also seems to still be affecting him, as he's a self-described rude person and clearly very ornery around Elena and Price. Why did Price bet on Santi's first tournament in Stick? Price has money and gambling problems he needs to work on as Stick progresses. One of the only confusing parts of Stick Episode 3 was Price's decision to bet on Santi's first tournament. He told Santi at the start of the day that the tournament meant nothing and it didn't matter if he won or lost, and Mitzi also mentioned that it was a meaningless event. Price's gambling also caused a lot of strife between him and Santi, as it caused him to lash out after Santi's poor performance on the front 9. Price gambled on Santi's first tournament both because he has money problems and because he has a bit of a gambling addiction. Stick has gone to great lengths to show that Price has some financial hardships, from his problems with his former house to his unpaid parking tickets. The show also began to depict his gambling addiction. One of the first scenes of Price saw him hustling some bar patrons out of $1,000. It's clear that Price has money and gambling problems, and it's also clear that he's going to have to work on them throughout the remainder of Stick Season 1. If he doesn't, his gambling problem could drive another wedge between him and Santi, and it may end up biting him by the end of Stick.